Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, board members. I'm going to have a little bit to say about the return to school plan and the agreement here in a little bit. So I'm going to hold my comments and make them pretty brief. The one thing that we have not talked about tonight, and I don't expect it'll be talked too much about on the dais, is there's an election coming, and both at my work and on occasion here in the past, I've seen where people think that the dais is a place to campaign. There will be no campaigning from this dais when I'm the board president. Also, the chat room and the public comment area is not a place to conduct your election activities, so I'll keep my eyes up on that. What I will say is this, and I give this advice. If you go to the civility statement, there's a part of it that says, understand and respect district policies and procedures. And being critical and outspoken is certainly a very important part of the democratic process. But when you're doing that, remember, if the day comes when you are sitting up here, the days of being critical and pointing out problems will suddenly become the day where you are expected to build consensus and solve some of those problems. So we can always get better up here, and the people that have served up here from going back into, I think, the late 1800s, we're just people, and whoever's going to be up here, we would certainly welcome you, but put your time into understanding district policies, because and the limitations of things and the rules about things. There's many laws and things, and don't find yourself going into the back room at the first closed session and discovering that everything that you've said is kind of like the way it is. So that said, I want to be really clear. I don't care who sits up in the other chairs. I sit in this chair right now, and that's hard enough for me. So I won't be endorsing anyone, and I don't expect anyone else up here would do that either openly or in a veiled manner. So I would like to say, though, everyone that decided to throw their hat in the ring on this election, congratulations to you, and I very much appreciate your ability to serve the community. My last message right now is to the parent groups, and I'm talking about the PTO, the boosters, and the PTS. So, guys, you've spent the last couple of years developing a very positive environment and a measurable environment. And you've communicated that you are supportive of our staff, our administration, our teachers, and everyone. And right now, there are so many people out there that are wondering what they're going to do at home, how they're going to create a positive learning environment at home, and they're just really stressed out about it. And I know that you all have great ideas, and never underestimate that. So, guys, in the parent groups right now, if there's a time for you to kick it in to support the district and especially each other, please do that right now. We need you so badly. That concludes my comments for this evening. Thank you. Understanding of some of these purchases is that there are governmental piggyback contracts. So, for example, you may be able to buy a certain model of a playground piece of equipment guaranteed at a price by another district or a governmental agencies that negotiated that price. So I believe this is part of a piggyback agreement. Is that correct?
That's exactly correct.
Okay.
Yes, yeah.
And so sometimes what happens, those piggyback agreements, is that the entity that's supplying the stuff has X number of units at that price, and then when they're depleted because everybody's buying them at a cheaper price, and sometimes the price goes up, and I think that this price increase, it's marginal and nominal. I'm being so vaguely unclear here, but anyway, so the moral of the story is we've got the Chromebooks that we need to supply our kids, and it's also my understanding that we've had pretty good participation in the survey that went out about the technological needs that our students have.
No,
yeah. Yes, good, I'm done, thank you. This is this ASMO position, ASMO itself. This is another one of those things that right now it's real easy for these axillary groups to kind of be in limbo, not knowing where we're at. We're not at the campus. We're not doing this kind of thing. And this is a time when your creativity and your support of the community is really, really important. So figure out what you can do to make something happen, whether it's online or what it is, and keep this going. Sandy Madsen did so much for our community, starting with this as an example. So I appreciate the support ASMO gives the district. Okay, I'm going to make a couple comments, and here I'm going to stay out of trouble. You might have noticed the last few board meetings that we have been very careful not to introduce our opinions about what's going to happen, why it would happen, and all that kind of thing, and I'm very happy we did. We've got this COVID industry guidance school program, and I don't think any of us are in charge of Cal OSHA. I used to hate when these people came around when I was a crane operator or something, but there's some standards out there from oversight agencies that a lot of this is put in place. Some of them are very solid and predictable. Other ones have been fluid and dynamic. So here is what I'm going to say. I'm a facilities person, and what that means to me is there's something that needs to be done. There's a budget that tells you what you're going to pay for it, a unit price, a frequency, or some measurables that say this is what's going on. So when it comes to the facilities and how they're treated, I'm going to be focused on the frequencies and efficiencies that are gained when people know we're not supposed to be in the building. The people that are in the building are going to be in the building. And a good example of frequencies is now all of a sudden things get cleaned every 5 minutes. In some cases, you hear see somebody speaking on television, and there's somebody up there wiping everything down. So it asks that everybody be cognizant of the fact that if a room is closed and there's no one in there, let's not introduce things, and let's keep our campuses right and tight, and that way we're not, I don't expect to see pets and people that aren't signed into the office and things like that there. Other than that, I think this is a no-brainer, and I think we've had good control of our campuses for years and years. Now the teachers, I will say this about the teachers. I've often wondered how a teacher can look at 20 or even 30 faces in a room and kind of gauge who's getting it, who's not getting it, who's the behavioral problem, how the smart kid that's getting it doesn't get bored, and they use body language, and they're processing this and moving the material and curriculum ahead in a way where everybody benefits. Now imagine you do something for years and you've got all these tricks and these little nuances that you're familiar with that make you effective, on top of the fact that you've made yourself credentialed and competent in your work area, and then suddenly somebody comes along and turns the whole thing upside down, and you're expected to just overnight agree to something where you're kind of wondering, how am I going to make this work? Well, what it's going to look like is now, instead of having the kids in the room where you can look at them, you can get your magnifying glass out and look at the screen that we're looking at and see all these little faces and try to read and gauge what they got going on. And I don't think that's fair to expect that would happen overnight, especially when you've got oversight agencies being very dynamic in some of the stuff that they're throwing out, and some of the guidance manuals and the templates that some districts were depending on to get this stuff rolled out in a timely manner weren't forthcoming at the rate it was supposed to. So it's no surprise to me that professionals who want to agree to a measurable means of educating our kids in a way they have done it in the past very successfully, that everything doesn't line up. And I very much appreciate parents. I know it's frustrating not to be able to go buy 10 glue sticks at the last minute. And that's part of a ritual, and our rituals have been broken up. But teachers, I very much appreciate you, and facility staff. Once this is all over, one thing that I'm going to be focused on, and I tie into some weird stuff every once in a while, but I notice in the virtual environment there's a chat area or a side area, and I think that's where a lot of support needs are going to be coming up, and that's where resources pop up, where this kid's not getting it, he's raising his hand, the disruptive kid is over there. So I'm kind of looking at, and it kind of makes me wonder how a teacher delivers effective education in a way where they move it ahead, pace it for the benefit of the entire class, keep everybody engaged, and still monitor what's going on in the background. So I think the support and the resources that we're going to need to make this all work, there's going to be some challenges there. But other than that, I don't see any huge problem here. Our teachers have done it in the past, and they'll do it again this time. It appears that they're restructuring some of their back-of-house services, in which there can be some efficiencies gained. I applaud the fact that they would bring this forward as a material revision, even though it isn't specifically required. You usually see material revisions drop in student counts, change of names, change of locations, changes of district boundaries. There's none of that in here, and it says within the agenda exactly what it is. But I will join Tim in expressing that we are always cognizant of of the charter's ability to maintain its financial stability, which has a direct connection to the quality of education. When you start losing funds, you start losing other things, and among them, educational quality generally. So that's just a general comment. Tim, thank you for your comment. And I will say this, if you are somebody that's studying this, you might want to be very familiar with where your local revenue comes from in this district and any possible volatility there. I think if you watch the news at all and are engaged in local governments, you'll see even some of the most affluent cities in the region are expecting 20% budget reductions next year. I mean, you can't have Rodeo Drive shut down for 3 months and be thinking that everything is going to be wonderful. And to Mike's point, yeah, it's on the book, but yeah, we need to tighten our belts and make sure that we're spending our money properly. Whoever is making sure that they're getting these extra funds and grants or whatever they are for this COVID-related stuff, I know that doing the documentation for that stuff is a pain. I know that they come back and want to question it later, and you spend as much time doing paperwork as you do trying to get the money. But thank you for everything you do without making a lot of noise about it, because it's harder than it looks. I know that to be the case. So we heard all of this about 45 days ago, so thank you, Lynn. Nothing. I'm going to say that I'm a veteran of a municipality, and nothing is worse than seeing a pot of funds over here and someone not figuring that you can't use capital improvement project funds to pay payroll and things like that. So if you'd like us to take an action on that, where the board is recognizing that what these funds are meant for, what you can use them for, and most importantly, what you cannot. If you need that, we'll give that to you.